On this video, we're going to completely rebuild the toilet. First, cut the water off. Since we're going to remove the toilet from where it is, the tank and everything, we're going to take the top off and put it somewhere where it's safe. Remove the remaining water in the tank. I usually like to start by removing the tank ball so that I can take a nice large sponge and sponge up the remaining of the water that's in the tank. And once we get most of the water out the tank, that's when we're going to begin removing the tank. Now this way, water doesn't go everywhere. Here I'm pointing at the packing nut. Okay, now we're going to remove the supply line to the toilet. Removing the supply line to the toilet. This is the and usually I like to do this with the going to remove the ballcock. This is the bottom view of the ballcock. So we're just gonna remove this nut so that back out. This is the top view of the ballcock. This is the hole where the ballcock went. And this here is the flush tube, or better known as the flush box, flush valve. Which we are also going to remove once we remove the toilet tank. Now here are the tank bolts that we're going to remove. that bolts the tank down to the bowl. Now the tank is ready to be. Now we're going to take the tank and remove the remaining of the tank bolts and the flush valve. Okay, now we're going to remove the flush valve. This is the tank to bowl washer. Now you see the tank to bowl gasket, and we're going to also replace that. Now we have our toilet supply line. This is particular one is called a rubber tip. And we have our braided toilet supply line. It's a good idea to check your local codes in case you want to use plastic supply lines. Some municipalities don't allow it. And here is our new flush valve. This is the new ballcock that we're going to use. It's made of brass, and that's mostly my preference. The refill tube, the trip lever that turns the ballcock off and on with the water level, and this is another type of ballcock, which is called a Fluid Master. These are the two most commonly used ballcock, the brass one and this here, the Fluid Master. Fluid Master refill tube, washer, and assembly. First, let's install the flush valve. Now you notice the two holes on each side of the flush valve. Make sure to position the flush valve so that it doesn't cover any of those holes. Now let's take the flush valve nut and connect the flush valve to the tank. Get a nice snug tight fit. Now we have the flush valve nice and secure. This is the tank to bowl kit. The tank to bowl gasket, tank to bowl bolts, washers, and nuts. Let's start with the tank to bowl gasket. Just flipped it on there. Now we're going to start with the tank to bowl bolts. That bolts the tank down to the bowl. We put our washer. This washer is going to go in the inside of the tank. And we will have another washer that goes on the outside of the bottom part of the tank to make a nice tight seal. We install our outside washer at the bottom of the tank, and next we install our stainless steel washer. And now the bolt. And we're going to take this bolt, thread it on there, screw it down, and get it nice and snug. Again, this is something else. You'd rather not tighten too tight. But yet tight enough. Use our small adjustable wrench. Now we have the complete tank to bowl set connected. Our next step is to set the tank into place. Now let's put our tank to bowl nuts from the bottom in, our washer and our nut. For those of you who like to use the Fluid Master, this is how it comes. There's two washers. One washer has to be popped out of the other. This is the tank washer. Just put our ballcock in place. That is the refill extension, and now we're connecting the refill tube to the extension. In some cases you may not need this extension, but just in case you do, this is how it goes. But you will need the refill tube. We just plug our refill tube into the side outlet of the ballcock and the other end into the flush box. We're going to go here, we're going to go with the brass ballcock. The refill tube for the brass ballcock, we just screw it in. There's only one spot it can go. Now this is going to be the trip lever for the float, the ball float will go on one end, and as the water rises, it will cut the water to the ball cock off, therefore stopping the tank from filling or overflowing. Now the ball float. It just screws right onto the other end. Of course, you're going to need 2 sets of hands to do this, while holding the ball cock up top in the tank and screwing the nut on from the bottom part. Now let's tighten it with the our pliers. Now we're going to install the supply line to the toilet. For those of you that like to work with the stainless steel braided supply line, this is a much easier supply line to work with because it's the flexibility that it has. Now, for those of you that like to work with the metal supply lines, this is a little more complicated, a little harder to work with, but most professionals choose this supply line to install. And by the way, this metal supply line is required by code in most municipalities. Here we have our tubing cutter where we're going to cut where we're holding the tubing at. And if you don't know how this works, you just turn, and as you turn, you slowly turn the bottom part where the handle is, where you're holding it, right there. Just give it a little turn. There you go. And then turn it some more until the supply line just pops loose. Just keep going until it pops loose. You don't want to put too much pressure on it because it won't cut right. Now we're slowly cutting the water back on, and we see we're putting the refill tube here in place. And now we're going to connect our flapper to the toilet handle. Now the tank is slowly filling back up. What you see me doing there was adjusting the float, and that's easily done by bending the rod. So now when the tank refills, it should stop where we want it to stop. This is the refill tube that I was showing you earlier. This refills the bowl so that that there's always a seal. You can see the water moving around there. That's the refill tube filling that up.